So I wasn't planning to actually make a video about this, and you can tell that I'm still a little bit plugged up just from being sick with the flu for the past several days, so I'm going to try to talk as clearly as I can, but that being said, I just had to talk about the first few episodes of Frieren Beyond Journey's End, because, dear God, I'm already in love with this series. The last time that I had such a euphoric reaction to a first episode like this was when I watched the first episode, and first few episodes rather, of Heavenly Delusion from earlier this year. And when that had finished its run, I truthfully thought that it was going to be my choice for anime for the year 2023. I loved virtually everything about that series, but the first couple of episodes of Frieren has left such a strong and passionate first impression that I'm starting to think that I might need to walk back that quick judgment for right now and just reevaluate it, because this introduction was just simply marvelous, and is a beautiful display of visual acoustic artistry, amazing world-building, character, and all the little nooks and crannies in between that make fantasy such a rich and fulfilling genre of storytelling. I'm frothing so far. So I'll try to summarize this rather quickly for those of you who maybe don't know what the story is about. So, after saving the world, a party of 4 ends up splitting between the warrior Himmel, the priest Heiter, the dwarf Eisen, while the mage Frieren sets off on her own path to collect some spells and increase her own magical understanding. And after returning to her friends about 50-some years and enjoying a beautiful star shower with them, Himmel quietly passes away. And the thing is that Frieren, despite not knowing Himmel that well, despite all their travels together, really seems to mourn his death, and taking the chance to increase her own understanding of humans, and who are not given nearly the long lives that elves are, she returns about 20-some years later to learn that Heiter, the priest, has taken in an orphan with magical potential named Fern, and he asks Frieren to take her with her on her journey, but Frieren worries that Fern will only hold her back and that she likely won't survive. But a small display of magic from Fern shows that Frieren is clearly impressed with some of the magical potential that she has within her. So, just as a general note, the show's main strength lies primarily in 2 things, the first of which informs the second. Firstly, the drama within the series is very understated. No matter how many luscious splashes of animation happen to grace the screen, or how many gorgeous colors or tight compositing arrive, everything is more about the conveyance of a tone and an emotion rather than an action or thing that dazzles in that sense. And there is plenty of beautiful animation that's in the course of this series, but for Frieren, whose character essentially has a chasm between herself and just about anyone she might encounter because she has this incredibly long lifespan, this kind of tonal setting is important. It sets her up as someone who is in her own way a little bit adrift, always moving from place to place and never settling for relationships or environments that she could call home. Hers is really more of a nomadic lifestyle, that any kind of bond that she has is more incidental as opposed to being something that maybe she consciously thinks of as earnest or sincere. And this is the reason why her reaction to Himmel's passing is such a powerful moment. Even though they spent 10 years together, and they should in theory know each other well, the thing is that for an elf, 10 years is almost no time at all. In a sense, it's like she blinks and it's been 10 years. As far as Frieren is concerned, Himmel was only ever really a party member, but not actually a friend beyond someone to help pull her out of a mimic's chest's jaws. But as Frieren evidently learns both at Himmel's funeral and in visiting Heiter and Eisen again all those years later, time has a habit of causing you to realize thoughts, feelings, or connections that you didn't necessarily realize that you had. I mean, the fact that she wanted to show them a better stargazing spot 50 years later shows that she must have obviously felt something for these people, but it's entirely possible that she just simply did not realize the extent to which that feeling meant. And this is also why, as especially the first episode goes on, Frieren smiles more at the reunions with her party members rather than maintain that stoicism that she has. The show's exposition makes it clear as a result that she's already learned something very important about herself, And it doesn't really need to call so much extra attention to it because it trusts you to be smart enough to pick up on it. The other strength of the show is just the fact that it's a show that's quiet. In both the soundtrack by Evan Call, who you may know as the person who did the soundtrack for Violet Evergarden, the use of beautiful open spaces, and especially the voice acting. Dear God, the voice acting in this is so good. Everything is either muted or, to use maybe another word, cradled. It's a series that begs you to stop and bask in its tone and ambiance rather than wonder at what the next major action scene is going to be or when it's going to take place. Even though, like I said, the little bits of action that we have had in the series so far are in and of themselves just simply beautiful. I don't know whether anyone else has had this reaction, but this actually gives me the chance to talk about a belief that I feel for television anime. I've long held on to the idea that TV anime, less so movies just because the difference in medium allows them to use this a little bit more easily, is often too loud or desperate to make something happen to keep the pace going, either in regards to getting things to the commercial bumper or even just within the course of individual scenes or entire 24-minute episodes. Now, you can joke about how I'm an old codger and how I just want things to shut up and slow down for a minute, but it's a feeling that I've had for several years at this point. And Frieren really seems to require you to stop and just allow the story to move at its own leisurely pace and never feel stagnant. Every moment that happens feels like it moves things forward either in terms of its mood or in terms of its interactions. And then when we get to episode 2, we have that absolutely beautiful quote from Heiter about, I'm going to paraphrase it here, I think it goes something like, if you have precious memories inside of yourself, then I think it would be a waste for you to die. And even though Heiter was the one who said those words to Fern during the course of the episode's flashback, it really goes to show just how much stuff like that fuels a lot of the understated drama for the show's first couple of episodes, even though between the two episodes about 5 years transpires. I mean, Frieren's tears at Himmel's funeral were themselves a realization of all the memories and thoughts of him that she could have taken the time to explore while he was alive, but really didn't. I mean, all that she has left now are the memories of him that she does have. Heiter's own thoughts are preoccupied with trying to stay alive because he's so afraid of dying, and maybe in his own way, honor the memories that he has of Himmel by trying to help Fern and try to spurn her to do something to keep her alive too. And Fern makes it clear that even though she's not with Heiter at the time of when he fell, when he was visiting Frieren in the library when she's transcribing the books, she makes it clear that she's grateful to him, but she also feels that it would sort of in a way be an insult to the memories she has of him and the kindness he shows her every day if she were to fail to become a mage before his passing. I think the way that she phrases it is, I don't want him to regret saving me. But Frieren also makes it clear that she needs to be able to say a proper goodbye to Heiter because even though it's not overtly said in the text, it's the kind of thing where if Fern did not actually go and end up doing that, she would have probably regretted it forever. So the case in point that I want to make is that even when the show does say a lot of things rather overtly in the character dialogue, it tends to lean more into illusion through understated tone that I spoke of before. What strikes me as just so lovely is how it all just naturally seems to be flowing out of the screen, which is just a sign of both the inherent strength of the original material and how the director, Saito Keiichiro, and everyone have been handling the matter. I don't find myself fishing for meaning in the way that some other media does. Not that that's a bad thing in and of itself. I kind of like it sometimes when a show forces me to play along and wonder a little. But it makes me think that maybe Frieren might be a solid option for introducing this kind of understated storytelling to those who might have been deterred prior. And one of the best ways that does that is actually in the latter half of the second episode. Sorry, I bought my phone. I don't know if you could hear that on the recording, but with Heiter at that point now passing, Fern and Frieren have to start traveling, and Fern questions Frieren why she's collecting all these seemingly incidental or perhaps maybe even in a word useless spells, rather than doing something more grand scale to help the world. But there is a reason for that. and even though the text doesn't necessarily say it, which is that Frieren already kind of did that, with the world more or less now at peace. There's less of a passing urge to save or help the world in terms of grander gestures or flourishes of magical dimension. Instead, it's a world where the mundane is the best help that you can give the world, and if that's the case, then that's just simply a lovely sign. Frieren's spell collecting is indeed something that Himmel inspired her to do to avoid the apathy regarding her long life, and it's also an acknowledgement of all the good things that Frieren did do to help keep the world safe, because the fact that she has this hobby means that she and the other party members were able to do this world-saving thing, and therefore, as a result, their lives can still keep going. That's part of the reason why this full story of the full title of the show is Frieren Beyond Journey's End. And the affect of that, and the impact of that, is the ability to create newer and beautiful life by finding the old and breathing life into it again. Hence why the Himmel statue cleaning and the flowers, specifically blue weed, which Himmel seemed very taken with and Frieren took the time to remember, are such an important moment of characterization both for Frieren and Fern, separately and together. It makes one of the overarching themes, perhaps early on in the story, is that the ways in which Frieren can possibly breathe life into Fern beyond her time with Heiter as they continue to travel. So, as I hope it's been very clear, I've absolutely loved these first two episodes of the show. I haven't even seen episodes 3 and 4 yet. I'm going to probably do that as soon as I'm done recording this and uploading it to YouTube. As far as the production itself, this is my one serious apprehension. The show is going to be too core, and although it has Saito Keiichiro, who I mentioned before, and you might also recall was the director for Bocchi the Rock. It has Evan Call on music, who I also mentioned before, and many other talented people involved in production. I do actually worry about this production. The last time that Madhouse got a group of people this excited to work on a project was Sunny Boy back in 2021, which was one of that year's most visually and acoustically dazzling displays of animation, headed by Natsume Shingo. I made an old video about that way back in my older reviewing style, which I hate, and talked about it with Aaron and Flats in that video about the year 2021 in anime. But with two cores, however, for Frieren Beyond Journey's End, I'm praying with all my soul that this production does not explode. It's got a long, long hill to climb, and I would hate to see material this interesting and look this good run into the wall of troubled productions, especially with Zombie 100, Bucket List of the Dead, what's been happening with A1 recently. We sort of are kind of living in the age of delays and production woes, and I really just hope that that does not come for Frieren. But as of right now, Frieren is a show that I would implore anybody who is vaguely curious to please watch. It's so inherently interesting, and I just really, really hope that it continues to be so. Frieren, Beyond Journey's End, Sōsō no Frieren. Watch it.